Hey everyone, it's Cal from Wise Guys Tutoring. Today we're going to talk about solving quadratics using the quadratic formula, which is an extremely useful tool because it can actually solve absolutely any quadratic equation that you have. So let's get started. I'll remind you of the standard form, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equals y. And when we are solving this quadratic equation, you need to make sure that you are setting it equal to 0. For example, we're going to dive right in here. So let's say I have x squared minus 8x plus 15 equals 0. Now this we can solve with the quadratic formula. And it looks like this. X is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Now, this is a beast of a formula, right? But we'll go through it step by step. It'll be quite simple. First thing you need to do, like I said, is make sure you equate it to 0. Now, in my humble opinion, you should always try to solve it by factoring. If you haven't learn how to do the factoring method, then you can check out our other videos on solving quadratics by factoring, which is, finding two numbers that multiply to give you 15 and they add up to give you -8. And that's a faster way when possible, especially when you got a coefficient of a is 1. So let's get into the coefficients. This one is called a, right? And when you don't see what it is, that just means it's equal to 1. So I'm going to go ahead and say a equals 1. And b is right here, it's the coefficient of x, so b is equal to -8. And finally c, which is the constant, is 15. So I'm going to go ahead, take these guys, and pop them into this formula, which says that x is equal to minus b. So I'm going to do it slowly, and I advise you to do the same. Don't be a hero. Don't just go ahead and put 8 and get rid of all your signs. Just substitute your numbers and work them out later. This is minus 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times 15. All of that divided by 2 times 1. So the next thing you should do is calculate this part under the root by itself. We call it the discriminant, and we use the symbol delta, the Greek letter delta, for the discriminant. And this is equal to just that part under the root, which is minus 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times 15. Now what you want is to do each one of these separately and deal with the sign later. So minus 8 squared is 64. Keep the minus. 4 times 1 times 15, that's 60. Now you get 64 minus 60, the discriminant is equal to 4. So let's clean up this equation. Let's clean up this bad boy. So minus 8, as you probably knew already, is positive 8. Now under the root we have 4. This whole complicated thing we found was 4. And then you divide it by 2 times 1, which is 2. Now what does that mean, plus minus? Well, let me show you. It means we're going to have two solutions. The first one entails adding the square root of 4. The second one is by subtracting the square root of 4. So let's try it. The first solution, let's call it x1, is equal to 8 plus 2, which is square root of 4, over 2. This gives me 10 over 2 and gives me a solution of 5. The other solution is x2, 8 minus 2, over 2, 3. What does that mean, two solutions? Well, like I said, what we're solving for are values of x, which make my y equal to 0. It's a parabola that crosses the x-axis at x is 3 and at x equals 5. You're going to have a parabola that looks something like this. Right? It's a parabola, so necessarily it will curve either upward or downward. In this case, it curves upward because a is a positive number. It's a happy face. And that means it's going to pass by these 2 points when x is 3 and x is 5. Now let's check the case where you don't have two solutions, you only have one solution. So our next example, we take x squared minus 2x plus 1. Again, this is set to 0. And in case it's not set to 0, for example, if you had something like x squared minus 2x equals -1, you need to, do a little bit of algebra and make sure you equate this to 0 before you start solving. So you get x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 0. And now you can use your quadratic formula. It's got to be set to 0. Now we can take our coefficients. So again, a, when you don't see what it is, it means is 1. B is equal to negative 2. C is equal to 1. Now we take our equation and we substitute everything slowly. We say x equals minus negative 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1 over 2 times 1. Again, you take the discriminant on the side by himself, and we try to solve this nice and slow to make sure we don't make any errors. Minus 2 squared is 4. 4 times 1 times 1, that's 4. Now look what we get. We get the discriminant is equal to 0. So if I simplify this equation, look what happens. You get positive 2 plus or minus square root of 0 over 2. Now square root of 0, that's useless, right? Square root of 0 is equal to 0. And in that case, I don't need 2 plus 0 over 2 and 2 minus 0 over 2. That's the same thing, right? 2 plus 0, 2 minus 0, same thing. There's only one solution. It's 2 over 2. And that means x is equal to 1. What that means in a graph is the following. It means I have a parabola that touches the x-axis at x equals 1. Just at one point. So it looks like this, touches at one point and curves back up. There's only one solution to this that gives me y equals 0, and that's when x is equal to 1. Now the final case is when there's no solution, so let's check it out. Say we have x squared plus x plus 3, and this equals to 0. Now we take our a equal to 1, our b equal to 1 as well, and our c is equal to 3 in this case. So let's pop them into that behemoth equation and see what's up. You get minus 1 plus or minus 1 squared minus 4 times 1 times 3, and you divide by 2a. So we'll take the discriminant on the side, delta. We say it's 1 squared minus 4 times 1 times 3. 1 squared is 1, of course. 4 times 1 times 3, that's 12. Gives me minus 11. Aha, so now we have a problem, right? Why is that a problem? Well, minus 1 plus or minus the square root of negative 11 over 2. So minus 11, he's got no real solutions. We cannot take the square root of a negative number. So that's it. There are no values of x that give me a y value of 0. And that means on a graph, you have a parabola that looks something like this, where it just never crosses the x-axis. That means there's no value of x that gives me a y value of 0. There are no real solutions to this equation here. Okay? That's basically it for the quadratic formula. I highly advise you to try the factoring method first all the time because it has less steps, especially when a is equal to 1. It's much simpler, much cleaner, and it gives you less chance to create any, calculation mistakes. The second thing I would advise, go slow. There are a lot of terms and a lot of signs that can get confusing. So first, what you do is substitute your numbers in here. Secondly, take the discriminant by itself and calculate that and then pop it back into your equation. It'll help you tremendously, I promise. So I hope you found the video useful. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks, guys.